Well, welcome. I'm Newell Arnerich, Mayor of Danville, and welcome to the podcast for the mayor. Today, we're joined by Sumita Bhandari, Executive Director of Discovery Counseling Center. And very appropriate, welcome, Sumita.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're excited to, and yes, we can be excited about mental health. And we're going to talk a little bit about why we should be excited about that. But particularly that this month, the month of May, is mental health awareness. And it was at our May 19th council meeting that you were kind enough to accept a resolution from the town proclaiming May as Mental Health Awareness. But I want to go back in a little bit of history to set some context. So Discovery Counseling Center started a very long time ago, and it started back in the 1960s. And maybe you can just share a little bit of brief, how did it get started? And then we're going to talk about where are we today, and a little bit about post-COVID. And we're going to talk some specific about post-COVID and what happened, where we are, and what's changed in that. So maybe you can start with a little bit about the history.
Yeah, because all of that would take time, right, to cover
Yes.
all of it. So starting back in the late 60s, really, Discovery was, the inception came out of concern that the community had over what they were noting among youth in the community, that there was a lot of drug use, that there was an intersection of a lot of issues of depression and anxiety among youth. And these leaders in the community, some of whom were Rotarians, some of whom were professionals in the community, got together and said, hey, we need to do something about this. We've got to be there for our young people. They're obviously struggling, and we're seeing the signs of that. How do we help them? And so they approached a counselor at San Ramon Valley High School by the name of Peter Strauss, and asked him if he would meet with these young folks, talk to them, see if there was something that could be done to help them. And so, Peter, being a therapist, just kind of approached the kids in a very, comforting, non-threatening way. I think they began meeting in the Foster's Freeze parking lot in downtown Danville. Foster's Freeze is still there.
Right.
And, I think he just had an approach with these young folks. It became so sought after, and there were, kids just kind of hanging out there already. And then they began to just become comfortable with Peter. And it very quickly became apparent that this was not only reaching kids in a way that was important, but it was effective. And the next question became, how do we keep this going?
Yeah, that was interesting because back in that point in time in history, people didn't talk about mental health. It was,
Very true.
Life was good, the world was great. Vietnam War was going on, and that was another current. But in the United States, there was a sense of peace, love, and all of those things, and a fairly wild experimental time. And mental health wasn't on that list. It was not in our schools per se. So maybe as we fast forward, how has Discovery changed, and what did it become since the days? And he literally had a van that I
Yeah.
think was purchased as from the folks you said who helped start, and he worked out of the van, Foster Freeze and that. So where are we today, and how do we get there?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story of where we started and how, the meeting the needs of not only young people then became addressing families, couples, and then, growing into a partnership with a school district about 35 years ago. A partnership began that offers now counseling in every school site in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. We recruit, train, supervise counselors who are on campus to meet students where they are, where they spend a majority of their day, in order to provide them support as needed. And it could be anything from a student struggling with how do I balance, this heavy load of classes with my extracurriculars? How do I, how do I balance expectations at home of what I should be doing and what I really feel a passion for? There could be a loss in the family. There could be a number of reasons that might trigger a referral to a counselor at school. But that is, just an example of how Discovery really was able to meet a need in the community and then evolve over time. So, as we discussed, we started in the 60s with really just high school kids. And then that developed into, the partnership that allowed us to provide services not only to students on every campus, but also to be able to provide services to the community at large. So, it has been, we went from, now we see thousands of sessions a year, thousands of
I was going
counseling
to say,
hours.
we have 28,000 students,
Yeah.
34 campuses.
Yeah.
So is this at all grade levels? I mean, it started in high school
Yeah.
at San Ramon Valley High,
Yeah.
but this goes all the way down to kindergarten TK.
Exactly. It's K through 12. Every high school, elementary, middle school campus, as well as our alternative education sites as well.
And then how many days a week are counselors available at the campuses?
Our counselors are on campus 2 days a week. And at times, there are sites that will have needs that exceed the 2 days, and we do our very best to kind of balance that and provide extra coverage as we are able to with the counselors that we have on staff. And so Discovery goes through that cycle of hiring, training, and supervising over 30 staff every year.
Wow, that's a lot of people. But it's an amazing value to the community. And I remember Discovery was involved in a program before you technically were. The former executive director, Kathy Shiverton, was involved in it, and I helped a little bit. But there was the stigma that goes along. It still exists today with mental health. Mental health that, I think people fear that people think I'm not a good person or I'm failing. But a program that came out of that was called, we knew first aid, right? We've all taken first aid classes,
yes.
how to something. So there was an organization that had just started with mental health first aid. Discovery Counseling Center really promoted that. And the concept was, particularly students, and that's my passion, is, trying to help students. And we know from educational purposes, the earlier we can help them, the more successful the outcomes are going to be. But people, when they would see young people maybe in stress off by themselves, they would have a tendency to walk around them. And mental health first aid said, engage, lean in. You're not going to solve their problem, but you might say, hi, how are you today? And that conversation may trigger, and you as that mental health first aid, what your role is to engage and say, hey, there are people that can help you, and do that. And I think that made a big difference. But then comes along COVID. And COVID revealed, I think, to the general public that mental health was all around us. And we didn't see it because, children go to school, adults go to their jobs and things. But now they're all at home. What do you think happened in COVID relative to mental health? And where are we today? Are we better? Are we worse? Are we still on a road to recovery?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think for mental health, COVID really, as you said, it highlighted for everyone, every family, that when we pull one thread from our lives that really, allows us to move through our day, to function. If we pull one thing, an expectation, how delicate our sense of well-being can be, and how we're all impacted by these things that we look to for normalcy, whether it's interacting with our friends and our families. All of that was removed for a period of time. All of those things that really do give us that sense of connectedness and well-being, and how fragile that can be. So I think for mental health, it really gave everyone a sense of, hey, this could impact me. Tomorrow something could happen in my life that could destabilize myself. And then the implication of that is all the people that are around me, my work colleagues, my family. will be impacted by my sense of well-being. So I think in a very fundamental way, it gave every, a community at large a sense that this is something that anyone could be dealing with at any given moment. And so there was an empathy for it. I think in terms of what we have seen at Discovery, both through COVID and afterwards, I still feel that we are not fully cognizant of all of the impacts that we, will ultimately feel coming out of COVID. I think there are many kids who were caught in very critical developmental times and suffered during that time when they had to be apart from their friends. They were not able to develop socially, and there were certain very important points developmentally that were missed that they're still trying to make up for. And then there's, other intersecting factors that were also present during COVID that COVID just kind of blew up in a different way. And, some of that we often talk about with social media, the time online, and the time that young people now spend in their rooms by themselves on devices. I think, we're all struggling to figure out how to contend with that and figure out really, is this something that needs intervention? And I think we still find parents looking for guidance on how to help their child. We see it manifest in different ways in the school district in terms of, absenteeism, kids that can't make it to school because, they're struggling with mental health issues, they're struggling with isolation, they're struggling with social acceptance, which are all issues, to get back to your original question. I don't think anything that came out of COVID was unique in a mental health sense, but I think that what COVID and other factors did was exacerbate it in a way that we're not quite yet prepared to deal with.
Right.
And we are still trying to figure out how best to address some of these issues. So, in terms of what we hear from our therapists, we certainly see, and right out of COVID saw, an intensity of issues that we hadn't traditionally seen. So it might mean that a student is in with their SKIP counselor, SKIP as we refer to our school counseling intervention program with SRVUSD. Traditionally we conceive SKIP to be a 8 to 12 week intervention to get a kid over a social issue or something, a mild intervention. But what we have seen is that the issues have grown. It might take a little bit longer, and that's a clinical judgment between that counselor and their client.
Interesting. I was just with a group earlier today, a group of high school students.
Yeah.
And it came up in conversation that they were in the 7th grade. And 7th grade is kind of that breakout year. It's, young people kind of becoming teenagers. And they all communicated through electronic devices because they couldn't see each other every day. They learned how to go to class in Zoom. So their world changed in a flash. Yeah. And social media, if you look at how social media, their advertising, their revenues all went up. They blew up. You look at all of the streaming services for online movies. Well, COVID clearly wiped out movie theaters because for, that 9 months or so you couldn't go. But it wiped them out because people got used to the streaming services. So all the online access could be on your phone, in your room, and it changed the world a lot. And so one of the questions to them was, they were trying to do presentations about how to get involved in their community. And the theme they all had was that they are intimidated. And it's because they lost those formative years of being connected. Yeah. Not that that's a mental health, but it's an observation that the normal processes are different. And sometimes mental health, as you've mentioned to me previously, is young people just need to know that this too shall pass and might be enough. And I was thinking about all of how we're seeing more people at Discovery Counseling, so you're seeing it in the staff. It's growing. There are more counselors there. The SKIP program is bigger because I remember when it started, it wasn't in all the schools,
Yeah.
and it was one day a week, and it's blossomed to meet a need. And how does a parent or a child, how do they get that help? Once they're enrolled in the school, something happens. Do they do it during school hours? Or maybe you can describe how that process works.
Sure. So it might look a little different depending on what level the student is
level,
at,
yeah.
right? Yeah, grade level, exactly. So at an elementary level, it might just be a parent meeting with a teacher at a parent-teacher conference and saying, hey, you know what, this is all great with the academics. I'm not that worried about it, but how are they doing in school? Do they have friends? I've noticed, that they have trouble connecting with their peers. Is there something that, that the school can offer? Are there any resources? And so something like that. Or there, like I said earlier, there may be a death in the family. So the teacher can refer.
So the teacher or a student. That's great.
Correct. And then, that they're, at a high school level, there, is a team of folks that might include a clinical social worker, school psychologist, their alphabet counselor. That team may meet and decide, okay, given this set of circumstances that we know about the student, who on our team, including the SKIP counselor, who's the best to be able to address this? And so they may refer. But yeah, the referral can come from a number of different sources.
Interesting. And is there a cost to seeking that service?
No, that actually is really a tribute to the school district that they had the foresight to invest in this support for students. It is free of charge to families, and it's accessible to students in a sensitive way that allows them to access the counseling without, calling them, hey, Johnny, time to go see your counselor. They try and do it in a way that minimizes any other social exposure that the child may have.
So obviously at the younger level, it's probably a parent or a teacher or a staff member who might observe something and make a recommendation. But high school, students are more mature in many ways. Can they on their own elect to say, hey, I'd like to just chat with somebody?
Absolutely.
And how does that process work there?
Yeah, absolutely. They would go to their counselor, their academic counselor. They're also trained a bit in this area to be able to at least recognize and refer kids to
So they would
the appropriate
refer to
level.
discovery through the SKIP program.
Yes, absolutely. Unless it was a more severe issue, in which case they would want to refer students directly. They try not to refer directly to us, but to appropriate services, of which we may be one.
So there's the school counseling, which is fairly robust. So that's available to the 28,000 students. So there's another side to discovery, and that's in the general public. And so what are the types of services that Discovery offers to the general public?
Yeah, so we offer counseling to really for a variety of issues, any, level that might go from, social anxiety, anger management, issues that couples are encountering, just a whole host of issues, really anything in that mild to moderate intervention space. Discovery would be able to help. It's I think there are certain things that we would refer folks out to other centers for. Excuse me, substance abuse issues that might require inpatient or even a higher level of outpatient treatment, things like that. But there is a large range of issues. We also offer group therapy services. So there are, and that was actually revived with the help of the town of Danville.
I was going to say it's a program we help fund, and you guys have been very successful with that.
Yes, it's been really just a blessing to be able to offer that to the community, actually similar to our SKIP program, free of charge. So residents of Danville are able to access those services without regard to any fees. So, we have a senior support group, a caregiver support group, a grief or loss support group, and as well as a somatic eating group, which is getting off the ground. And that has all been possible because we had the funds to be able to support that work. So we are very grateful to the town to really allow us to really what the grant funds is the therapist's time to be able to run those groups. Yeah.
So it's interesting. The demographics have changed a lot in Danville. Since COVID, our population over 65 has grown almost by 25%.
Yes.
And you mentioned in the group therapy, seniors and things like that. So Discovery was able to deal with not only children, families, and seniors. And why would somebody, what does group therapy offer that individual therapy? And who might do that? Is it easier for people to kind of be with people, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for bringing me back to that. I thought about talking about that, and then I lost myself in
No.
Totally
Different as what? Thank you for sharing what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, group therapy is uniquely able. I mean, it offers a couple of things just from a, being able to have a greater impact on the community, to be able to see 7 or 8 people at a time in one session. But that aside, group therapy in and of itself is better suited for certain issues that are not going to be able to be addressed in a one-on-one relationship with a therapist. And that has to do with social connection, isolation. When you talk about seniors, that is one of the most prevailing issues. And also, in that context, to be able to sit with a group of people, establish a connection with other folks going through similar circumstances. They may have adult children that they're, dealing with relationship issues there. They may have chronic health, problems. And everyone around there is not only there to kind of hear what's going on with you, they're also there to support you. And it's so uniquely able to help people, in a way that one-on-one therapy would not. And so things like the senior group, the caregiver group, even groups that we hope to start to help teens. We talked about isolation and, missing those very important developmental phases that we all benefited from and allowed us to be more comfortable in a social context, which a lot of this generation is still kind of struggling to figure out. And maybe eventually they will. They're going to join a workplace. They're going to be working, but we want people to be able to thrive and kind of meet their potential as soon as they possibly can. So group therapy really does offer some unique benefits.
That's great. And it's amazing, as we're just talking even here today, is how many types of services are available. But we've also had a dramatic change over the past 25 years here in the San Ramon Valley as a whole, culturally. Yep. So our school district has changed dramatically. 47% of the school district is now Asian Pacific Islander. What challenges has that presented to counseling, and particularly with Discovery and trying to reach people?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So yes, our composition of students has changed. I think the questions of what students are maybe dealing with that might have a cultural component have changed. I think the culture of the area overall has also kind of changed slightly. In terms of mental health, I think for Discovery, and one of the things that I really, when I joined, was very important to me to be able to offer some, some insight into, or some direction on is that cultural component. How do you reach a family who has had no interaction with the mental health system, who may have some reservations about whether this would go, in the case of skip access, is this going to go on their school record? How is this going to impact them? And really understanding, are we serving everybody, in an equitable manner, right? Are we reaching all the families that are really struggling? So, we applied for and received a grant to be able to fund cultural competence training for our therapists. So we completed that in 23, 24, we partnered with a professor at UC Davis who had done decades of research on how, if you don't necessarily look like the client across the table,
Right.
how can you, ensure that they have, not ensure to the best of your ability, but how can you maximize the chances that they're going to have a successful interaction
And connect with you.
and connect
that
with
you
you.
don't have some perceived barrier that might not really be a barrier, but there are
Yeah.
cultural differences about
Exactly.
mental health that
Absolutely.
create their own stigmas and barriers.
Exactly. There's often a sense of guilt, right? That there are a lot of sort of subliminal expectations that things like mental health will be dealt with within the family unit, and things are not to be shared outside with strangers. So a client, that might be even open to mental health may sit in a session and then feel tremendous guilt about sharing all of this private family dynamics or information with this person that is, otherwise a stranger. And so how do you, as a therapist, help them through that type of, cultural reason for that sense of, okay, I just want to discontinue this, because that is one of the
Build
phenomena that
trust.
we find.
They have to trust each other.
They have to trust you, and so how do you build that relationship? And so I found that tremendously satisfying to be able to, address that for our therapists, because the reality is the training for to become a therapist is a long journey.
Very long.
Yes.
Thousands of hours.
That 3,000 hours for a licensed marriage and family therapist. And it doesn't pay very highly. So really you're by virtue of the system, weeding out a number of folks who may be from disadvantaged backgrounds. So what we end up with is a struggle to try and diversify the workforce in the mental health sphere. So knowing that that's a reality, how do we as Discovery address that in an effective way so we can counsel, and offer services to our community that are culturally responsive? So that's part of it. I think part of the dialogue is also whenever we have the opportunity to address cultural nuance and allow the conversation to go beyond simply that I think these parents are putting too much pressure on their child. And what often happens with that is, and this is what I mean, is that the conversation will shut down there. Right. All of these parents in this community, you can fill in whichever nationality you want to in that sentence, are unreachable. And often the conversation will stop there. And that's the critical point where we actually need to build that trust and engage with that family. And so, to me, I think that's a very important part of what Discovery can and should be doing, even into the future, is to try and bridge those gaps wherever we can, wherever we have the opportunity to be able to do that. There are real stigmas out there for many communities in accessing mental health. So really the creative part is, how do we build that trust with the community, and how do we address these things in creative ways? So, if I'm not going to look like you, how am I going to make sure that we can have a successful trust built, based relationship? If, your family has some reservations about accessing mental health, how do we talk about it in a way that convinces them that this is actually going to ensure your long-term resilience, success, and happiness when you don't live under the roof with me as your parent, right? That's the message I think that sometimes we need to keep saying and keep talking about, because oftentimes, like, let's say we put on a workshop, we're only going to bring in the people that are somewhat sympathetic to the idea of mental health. They're the ones that are going to be in the room. But we need to reach the people who may not, be open to that message yet. How do we do that? That's the larger question. And I think that's where we need to kind of develop a message that's more nuanced, that really addresses what fundamentally any parent, no matter what cultural background you're from, you want your kids to be happy and successful. So how do we connect this? Because fundamentally that is what it is. If this pillar, as we all learned in COVID, is gone, it's devastating. So if you want, we truly want our kids and our young people to be successful in the long run, that connection to the mental health system, to the resources that are available to them, actually is part of preparing them to be a successful adult.
But you pivoted exactly on that in two ways.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what helps is you're born and raised, grew up in the area here, so you kind of know this. Your children went through the school system here. But counseling agencies don't do a couple of things. They normally do all the things you've said. But two things happen that you help promote, and it had to do with community outreach, fundraising, and things like that, and marrying the two to celebrate. And you don't think of mental health therapy about comedy.
Yeah.
And you started a comedy night that has evolved, and people show up knowing that Discovery Counseling Center is holding a comedy night, a night to celebrate community, local talent and musicians and things like that.
Yeah.
And then also doing Dandia Night in reaching out to the East Indian community of just celebrating. And nothing about mental health is ever talked about. But it's Discovery Counseling Center, the staff, the board members. What do you think that has on the impact of the community in doing those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is also, we often talk about mental health, and we focus on sort of the trouble and the struggles, but there's also a lot of deep joy and resilience that you see, that you get to witness. And I think what those events do is celebrate that sense of togetherness and community and the joy that we can find with one another. So, the first event you referred to is our Evening of Music and Laughter, which is held every spring, and it's put together by, the entire board, but the life force of that event is Mike Copeland, who does an incredible job. He puts together the show, finds the comedians, and I think that this sentiment was started by my predecessor, Kathy Shiverton, who wanted to put events together that didn't just that offered something, in exchange for somebody come out and support mental health. We also offer something to the community, right? Think about Discovery in a number of different ways. Think about it in a way of, hey, we're there. This is what we're doing in the community, and we're there to be able to help you if and when you need us. Just, it's a light message. It's we are a resource. And so similarly with Dandia Night, what I had wanted to do was, because, like I referred to, if we put a workshop together, we're reaching a limited sliver of people, but we need to reach everyone. How do we do that? And we struggled to really figure out a place where we could insert ourselves with a mental health message. And in the long run, I think that event holds its place in that space of we're here. Hey, did you know about us?
Right. Or just a resource. We can
We're
help
a resource.
you. But it doesn't hurt to laugh. We know that when human beings laugh, there's endorphins and things that are released in your body. Yeah. And it actually does make you feel better. Yeah. So that was an interesting contrast. And then the Dandia Night is so successful. And it's really not a fundraiser. It's really just reaching out to the community to celebrate, dance, share food, share community with each other. And there's 700 to 800 people, and you have to limit it because we can't find a big enough facility.
That's right. Yeah, we were pretty surprised by how quickly that was embraced by the community. They wanted to come out. They wanted to be together.
And all ages.
All ages. Yeah, that was the thing.
Oh,
it's
my gosh.
multi-generational.
Yeah, people, young kids, 5 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of high school kids. Yeah. And a wonderful group of adults that are incredibly talented, teaching young kids how to dance. It was, it was probably one of the best community events I think I've seen. And you've done it 3 or 4 years now? 4 years?
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
Well, you have another part, and we'll go back to some other services that we haven't talked about. But one of the core group of people, it happens to be a group of only women.
Yes.
My wife is there, and she's one of the younger ones. Yeah. but the average age is in the kind of the high 70s. And maybe you can talk about the Friends of Discovery. Who, what, when, and where? What do
Oh
they
my
do?
gosh, I would love to talk about the Friends of Discovery because there is no way that we would be here doing what we're doing without these incredible women, both the women who founded. So as I spoke about earlier, when Discovery Services became it became apparent that we were going to need a steady source of funding to be able to continue this work and reach.
As a nonprofit providing
Yes.
a lot of your services at little or no cost.
Exactly.
It's done, as I recall, based on if your income isn't this high, we can do it for free, and there's a sliding scale. Obviously, some can, but surprising in this valley, there were a lot of people, given the circumstances, may have caused the mental health issues, financial and things like
Yeah.
that, can't afford it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And and I think back in the days when it was started, I think it was free. The services were free, and then but getting back to the founding, so these women got together and said, hey, we're going to need to find a way to keep this going. This is really important to our community. And they decided back in the 70s, in 1973, it was founded, they decided to start a thrift shop and donated goods from the community to be sold to support counseling services. And that fundamental model exists today.
and some of the same women, I think, are working there, a few of them.
There are, it is the most amazing volunteer
53 years.
model. Yeah. We're talking Shirley Jacks. Yeah. So it's been just a blessing, doesn't even capture it. But yes, to your point, I mean, this is a 130 plus volunteer organization called the Friends of Discovery, founded in 1973 to run the thrift station, which is in downtown Danville. I believe it's one of the most successful retail operations.
Yeah, it's located at the Crossroads Shopping Center at the intersection of San Ramon Valley Boulevard, Railroad, Harts, and Harts Way.
Yes.
And they are the single highest grossing retail store, other than like a Costco.
Yeah. Amazing model, amazing symbolically what they represent. It's beyond even what they give to us, which I will tell you in a minute, and it'll blow your mind. But, well, but other people don't. It's repurposing goods from the community, turning it into, again, a good that comes out for the community.
Nobody gets paid. 100% volunteers.
Yes.
They only pay rent, utilities, and insurance.
Yeah.
Everything else is donated.
Everything else is donated and turned into, it's just the most beautiful model of sustainability, of community good. I mean, even, setting aside the good that comes from the sale of these donated items, the community and the family that's created amongst the volunteers is incredibly strong as well. Any one of them going through something, they're all there for each other. And it's, similar to what we talked about with group therapy. That right there is mental health.
Right.
Support in action. What they do for each other and that sense of solidarity amongst them. It's a beautiful thing, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, and through these donated community goods, they are able to provide Discovery with $50,000 a month in donation, which is
over $600,000 a year, actually. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Interesting in looking at that particular group, it reminds me a few years back, because quite a few of those women are widowed or single, and you're right, the therapy of the conversations, they all check in each other. They send out wellness notices to each other. But I think it revealed some of them also belong to one of our senior groups in downtown Danville at the Veterans Senior Building. And there was an idea, and Kathy Shiverton, myself, and some of our staff were there, realized that we could do some real senior counseling, but they needed the counseling in a group setting, but they all resisted it. They were willing to help, but they didn't realize it. And I think Discovery found a woman that was of a similar age. She joined the group and just became a friend. And they all got to know her. It was almost all women. And they were so ingratiated by her. And then slowly she started talking to him. How are you doing? And things. And Discovery was able to do a sort of a group counseling through a different avenue, not just advertising. And it was done so gently. And the women, the benefit, they became closer friends and they realized they had a lot in common. I mean, really a lot. And it was underlying was grief
Yeah.
and loneliness. And but a genius idea to have somebody who, as you were talking about, trying that you can identify with, and this woman realized I can't just stand up and preach mental health. I have to be part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. An organization, a professional for-profit would never think of that because there's no profit in it. But Discovery is uniquely positioned to be able to treat the community and meet it in the way it needs because you're a nonprofit and a nonprofit now for 50 or 55 years.
Yeah.
But you have other programs, I think, not only the seniors in that, particularly with young people. I think you've worked in a diversion programs over in history. Young child gets in trouble, and if the parent agrees to be part of the solution, which is important, that young person will not have any record. And Discovery was able at various times to provide diversion programs. Has that been successful from your point of view? And
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're referring to the Alternative to Suspension program,
right.
which, yes, offers families whose student has been, caught on campus, either in possession of or using substances, be it alcohol or tobacco. They are referred to ASP, and they opt in. And basically, what it is a two-part session. It's not therapy per se, but it is, the first session is an assessment of the nature, the extent of the problem, what might be intersecting, because what we often find, and this is really the whole spirit behind that program, is to move us away from a punitive frame of mind to a, hey, let's see what's really going on here, because as we know, there's something driving that student to that choice, right? So what is that? Factor is what this, the meeting with the therapist would be. So part one is that it's one-on-one with the therapist and the student. And then part two actually involves the whole family. And this gives the family a chance to understand what some of those underlying issues might be, as well as an opportunity for the therapist to be able to refer them to resources, whether it's at Discovery, or maybe if it's a more severe issue, there might be, some other program that might be required in that situation. But that program has really made a difference in turning some students, at a critical time on a different path. And we, this is kind of feedback that we've gotten from administrators at different high school levels in particular. We tend to see those kinds of incidents and referrals to this program pick up around this time of year, actually, when a lot of the, grad nights are happening, or, senior ball, junior prom, those kinds of events tend to be those high season, let's say, for ASP referrals.
Yeah. I recall back, and I got involved because I was involved with Discovery, but I also knew the family. There was a young man, middle school student, who had gotten in a lot of trouble, repetitive in the school, and convinced the parents and him to go through sort of a diversion that evolved a little beyond that. And it was amazing to see the transformation in this young man. He would wear a hoodie, come in Discovery with his head down, and reception could barely see who it was. And time goes on. One day this young man shows up, and the receptionist says, "Can I help you?" He goes, "I'm so-and-so." And she goes, "Who?"
Yeah.
And no hoodie, normal, smile on his face.
Yeah.
Wow, what a difference that makes.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you get to see the gamut of all of that.
Yeah.
if you were going to issue a mental health report card, this is a big question.
Oh gosh.
So, you know, sort of starting back, COVID to where we are now, you know, issues seem to change as the economy goes up, economy goes down. And we're just starting to feel it. A lot of people work in tech, major layoffs. Financial is kind of an underlying of a lot of issues.
Yes.
Children see things happening, discord at home, and they don't know if it's their fault or what role. Is there a mental health report card you think that you could say, where are we at? Where are we in this community?
Well, I mean, I think so I have to give a grade, huh?
No, you know, it's really to start the
Okay, good,
conversation.
'cause that's
Where
what-
are we? And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
what kinds of things could you say that, and obviously for people who might be listening, is to make somebody comfortable, say, hey, you know what? Boy, that's an issue I have too.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to somebody, you know, and part of the reason for us being on the podcast today is to be able to talk about things. And away we go. Yeah, you laugh, you feel good. When you don't feel good, you have a tendency to talk to your friend. So counseling has similarities to that. So is there a health card that we could say, what are those trends? Where are we at? What areas do you think we need to focus on?
Well, I think some of what you started with really, to me, will mean that it's going to be even more important that Discovery is able to be that place that people can come to. I mean, when we're talking about, prices going up, people losing their employment, people losing their health insurance, all of these are trends and realities that are in the background. I think as a community, we recognize the importance of being able to support one another, and that this is a critical factor in our ability to thrive as a community, to connect, to be able to engage in civic life. You have to feel like you have your resources together, right? It's, whether it's a student accessing academics or it's a citizen in our community accessing services and parks and being able to engage civically. I think this is a fundamental piece, and I think that the long history that Discovery has had in this community and the interaction and support with the civic leaders in this community has uniquely positioned us, as residents of the San Ramon Valley, to be able to deliver on what is inevitably going to become an increasing need for mental health support. And, we talked about Discovery, and I just want to make sure I touch on this. Discovery offers financial assistance for services. So if we have, it might be a well-to-do family that's going through a divorce and the wife has no access to the financial accounts, right? Yeah. So, or she's uncomfortable, she doesn't want to ask for it. Maybe there's some other implication that she doesn't want to trigger in, the proceedings. We're able to step in and say, that's fine. What can you afford? And hey, even if zero fee for a while, we can manage that. We want you to come in and get the help that you need. So I think in the context of, our report card, I think we're well positioned to be able to continue to do that as trends worsen. But we will definitely, we'll need, as any nonprofit does, we'll need to keep calling attention to the fact that these resources, in order for the services to be sustainable, the resources also,
they have to be available.
They have to be available.
It takes a lot of people.
Yeah.
It does take a village, but it's wonderful to know that there is a resource, and a resource that is unusual for a nonprofit like this that provides this kinds of services to be around for over 50 years. Yeah. That in itself is extraordinary. And when you look at the advent, particularly of the area that we live in, Silicon Valley, most of our residents work in tech. Technology is making human interactions, it's changing those. Not necessarily for the good, but it is changing, even with the prevalent use of AI. AI is being used right now. We don't even know it and how it's being used and things. And that's going to make life more complicated, and the intersections are going to get tangled and gnarly a little bit. So we're fortunate to have, obviously, Discovery, and it's an interesting point of view that here's a resource, and I would share this because it's public knowledge. It's amazing the number of people that get involved, and I'll share it because your background. But there is a one of our therapists who was just getting licensed is just leaving, but he has the same background as you. It's Candace, Supervisor Candace Asen.
Phil Anderson.
Yeah. Phil Anderson,
Yeah.
who was a lawyer,
Yeah.
corporate lawyer,
Yeah.
retires from that and felt a calling
Yeah.
to help people. He has incredible people skills, incredibly approachable. But he spent and did his, 3,000 hours he had to do. But he was a lawyer in your background. So you were a lawyer. I mean, you were a well-known lawyer in the area. And you ended up taking a break and said, I wanted to, how did you choose to be to get into counseling? What was your calling, or how did you make that pivot?
I think I've always, even when I approached, a career choice, it was always, how can I use what I feel I'm strong at? What are my strengths? How can I use that to benefit the community? I think the definition of that community has changed over time. I started early in my career in DC, advocating for immigrant rights at a Asian Pacific American organization, civil rights organization, and was fortunate enough to be able to, have a great position there. But I think over time, as I had kids and I, settled back into a practice, even at the law firm that I worked at here in downtown Danville, at Gage McCoy, I was encouraged to be a part of the community, and I really appreciated
To be a volunteer,
that. To be a volunteer, get involved with the issues that you care about, and actually, when I had the opportunity to be able to make that pivot, and I fully understood what Discovery does.
And how did you know what they did?
Well,
Because you were involved.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You were involved.
Yeah, and Kathy is a wonderful human being, and a
Kathy
dear
Shepard,
friend. Yeah, and she, is very good about sharing about the work that Discovery does. But I think when she was making the decision to retire, I had already decided that I was going to be making a pivot in my own career. But all that said, when I began to really look at what Discovery's place was, what they actually do, because I knew Kathy, I knew that they work on mental health, and great, it's a noble cause. But when I really started to understand the model, when I got to know about the thrift station, when I got to know about what this organization does in the schools for the young people in our community, I was compelled. I was like, this feels like the right place for somebody who grew up in this area, who understands a more diverse community as it evolves. What are the unique things that I could bring to this position that would allow me to be more effective, similar to how I chose my profession? What can I bring to the table that would allow me to do this in a way that would offer something to the community? So that kind of is the same motivation. And similarly, as you brought up Phil, Phil completed his hours at, during his time at Discovery, and we've had, I've had conversations with him about, just that deep satisfaction that you feel.
Well, and you
being
become
of use.
You were always involved in the community, but you're really immersed in the community in a lot of ways, and you've built stronger relationships. And it's clear with the Friends of the Thrift and the women that run that organization. It's part of Discovery, and you have to oversee that. But that is really robust. You can tell by their successes, the spirit they have, their recruiting, all of that. And we've had some members in that I think the oldest was 99, just a little over 90,
Yeah.
not quite 100. But it's changed a lot because it takes a lot of work. And those women are so dedicated, but you've built a wonderful relationship and a new team, and you're looking to expand, which is great. And the community has stood up to help support in
Yeah.
many ways.
Absolutely.
So you
Yeah.
see there's going to be a long future with Discovery? Will it be here maybe even 50 years from now?
Oh gosh, I sure hope so, because I think that this is one of those organizations, that has had it's almost like it's difficult to measure an invisible impact. But I know as I am out in the community, so many people have come up. Even when I was thinking about joining this organization, people were just beyond happy to come up to me and tell me, Discovery helped my niece, my sister, my kid. And they'll just come up to me and tell me that. So with the number of folks that I know have benefited, I sure hope that we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, and I agree with you. I don't think I ever shared this story. How I got originally involved back in 1999 with Discovery was helping fundraising, and also they were looking for a new home, and they'd found the home, a new space to rent, but they didn't know how to get the construction plans done, how to get a contractor. So I was able to help that. But what was really surprising to all of us was the construction company. The gentleman owned it. He was a former client. And he was fairly young. He was in his mid-30s, very successful.
Yeah.
And he was one of those that in the early years of the SKIP program, or a precursor to that, he got involved with Discovery. And he just said, I'm here in this community because I'm part of it. And that was what he told us, is that he felt disconnected from the community at the time, Discovery to help him that. So he was so excited to come back to be able to build and actually build the offices. So you're going to be moving. And again, as I said, you have the opportunity to expand. You've had offices in San Ramon for many, many years. And the thrift station is here in Danville. The partnership in the community, to me, has been elevated through the events that have risen up, from Dandia Night, Laughter, and all of those programs. I won't be here. You probably will be. But 50 years from now, I do see that there's hope. And it's not because you say, well, our mission is done. It's not mission, it's life.
Yeah.
Life is complicated and it will change. Who knows what the technology is? Who knows how we'll be living? And it's those changes and those interactions that create the opportunity to have those conversations. And I think about, on a layperson view, mental health is having a series of conversations with somebody you trust.
Yeah.
And it's just talking to know that what is happening may be short term, it may be long term, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And so I think the role, we are so fortunate in the San Ramon Valley to have an organization like Discovery Counseling that doesn't just raise money and give it away and ask somebody else to. You actually have to raise the money, you have to do the work, and the evidence is the health of our community.
Yeah.
So I really want to say a huge thank you to you, particularly Sumita, because you walk the talk and you do everything. And again, I think I know when you were considering to come to work, it's because you're from here. And you really did know the community and knew it from many levels of perspectives other people couldn't see. So I think that's huge. So I just want to personally thank you for that.
Thank you, Newell. I appreciate that.
And what would be the last message, if you could? We're just coming to the end here.
Yeah.
If you want to send a message out to the community from a mental health perspective, either about Discovery or just a general statement of how people, what can they do? Whatever you want to say in that space.
Yeah, I think being open really to considering these services for yourself. I think Discovery allows you to do that without feeling a sense that you need to address your issues in some way. It's like you said, it could be just meeting someone for a time period till you feel, hey, I've dealt with that issue. I think I'm okay. I can move forward. It may be something more long term that you need to see somebody about, but it's okay to reach out. And, I think, it could take many forms. We talked about the ladies at the thrift station, and really being amongst that community and family could be how you access mental health. It may not look like a session with a therapist. It may be a good friend that you can reach out to. It may be a grandparent.
And, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
When you said just a conversation, you also do telehealth.
Oh, yes, we do.
Right.
Yes.
That's a big deal because you had to figure out how to do that because of COVID.
Yeah.
And COVID, we couldn't meet. And it doesn't work for everybody, but for some people, I have a close friend who once a week just checks in. And sometimes they say, hey, how things are going? I'm great. What were you up to?
Yeah.
And it's just that pressure relief out. But you do telehealth. How does that work?
During COVID, we had to pivot 100% to telehealth. And we have a platform that we operate with, Simple Practice, and we have telehealth sessions available as needed. But what we find people want more of these days is that in-person session. That's just, I think coming out of COVID, that's what we're starting to see is there is a desire and
reconnect physically.
To reconnect. And there, from a therapist's perspective, there's a lot more that you pick up with body language, in a session but for, those folks that might be at work and, this is a session on their break.
And it might be what you call the light touch. It's what
Yes.
works for that person, their personality, and their circumstance.
Exactly.
A great option.
Exactly.
So I would leave this conversation maybe with this. We all as citizens have responsibility. Lean in for yourself. And if you have a friend that is, their personality has changed, their sadness or whatever it is that's changed them, lean in and ask them how they're doing. And know that Discovery Counseling Centers, organizations like that are available.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
Please thank all the therapists. Congratulate Phil Anderson on his achievement in getting his license.
Yes.
But thank you for
absolutely.
joining us today here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.